A millionaire wakes at 2 a.m. to find his cleaning lady's son silently washing dishes, and he's about to uncover a truth that will change both their lives forever. Welcome back to Whisper Realm. If you are looking forward for the truth to be uncovered, hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from in the comment section. Now let's dive in. The mansion was a cathedral of silence at 2 in the morning. Even the wind outside seemed hesitant to stir the tall glass panels that framed Robert Will's countryside estate. Inside, every surface gleamed with the sterile perfection of a man who had long ago replaced warmth with order. Robert moved through the darkened hallway barefoot, restless again. Sleep had become a stranger years ago, ever since the night he'd buried his wife, and, with her, the only part of himself that knew how to rest. He padded toward the kitchen, half expecting nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of the security lights. Instead, he heard it, soft, rhythmic, out of place. The faint clink of dishes. He frowned. No one was supposed to be here this late. Amelia John, his cleaning lady of nearly 10 years, had finished her shift hours ago. Yet as he approached, a pale beam of refrigerator light spilled across the floor, and in that muted glow stood a boy. Robert stopped in the doorway. The boy, thin, dark-haired, no older than 16, was washing dishes with a kind of desperate precision, scrubbing plates that were already spotless. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows, his hands raw and cracked, water running down to his wrists. "Chris!" Robert's voice broke the stillness. The boy froze. The dish in his hand trembled, slipped, clattered softly against the sink. He turned, startled, eyes wide and guilty. Mr. Wills. I was just helping Mom," he stammered. "She's been really tired lately, and I thought—" His words trailed off into the hum of the refrigerator. Robert studied him. The shaking hands, the hollow eyes, the too thin frame of a boy carrying more than his share of burdens. Something about the image tugged at him, some buried empathy he didn't expect to feel. "Does your mother know you're here?" he asked quietly. Chris hesitated, then shook his head. "Please don't tell her. She'll be mad I came." Before Robert could respond, Chris dried his hands on his shirt, muttered an apology, and hurried out, his footsteps fading into the cold marble halls until only silence remained. Robert stood alone again, the smell of dish soap faint in the air, the unanswered questions heavier than ever. Why was the boy really here? What kind of exhaustion drove him to clean another man's kitchen in the middle of the night? By dawn, those questions would not let him rest. And when morning came, Robert Wills, the man who thought he'd seen every kind of human motive, would begin to learn how little he truly knew about kindness, pride, and the quiet sacrifices made in the shadows of his own home. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen when Amelia John arrived, punctual as always. She moved with her usual grace, tying her apron, humming faintly, unaware that Robert was already seated at the breakfast table, watching her with quiet calculation. "Morning, Amelia," he said. "Did Chris make it home all right last night?" Her hands froze mid-motion. For a heartbeat, she didn't look up. Then she smiled too quickly. "Oh, you saw him? He was just finishing up after dinner. I asked him to help a little before bed." Robert nodded, saying nothing. Years of corporate negotiation had trained him to hear the tremor beneath the surface. Her tone was polite, steady, but her shoulders had gone rigid, and her eyes avoided his. "I see," he murmured. "Good of him to help." For the rest of the morning, Amelia worked silently, her usual chatter gone. Robert watched her leave at noon, her back straight, the weight of unspoken things pressing between them. Later, curiosity got the better of him. He opened the mansion's security feed. The footage played in grainy silence. Chris arriving at midnight with 2 grocery bags, slipping into the kitchen like a shadow. Robert leaned back, the truth gnawing at him. Why was the boy really here? The questions refused to leave Robert's mind. They followed him through the day like a shadow he couldn't shake. By noon, curiosity had hardened into quiet concern. He drove into town and stopped by the local high school, pretending it was a casual visit. The guidance counselor, a kindly woman with sharp eyes, remembered Chris immediately. "Such a bright kid," she said, shaking her head. "Used to talk about engineering scholarships." But lately, he's been missing classes. His teachers say he's distracted, tired all the time. It's a shame. Robert thanked her and left, the words heavy in his chest. A gifted boy throwing away his future. There had to be a reason. That evening, when Amelia arrived for her shift, Robert studied her closely. She looked pale, her movements slower than usual. "You've been working too hard," he told her. "Take tomorrow off. I'll manage things here." She protested weakly, but he insisted. When she finally agreed, a flicker of guilt passed over her face, something that only deepened Robert's unease. At 1:45 a.m., he waited in the dimly lit kitchen, lights off, coffee cooling beside him. Right on time, the back door opened. Chris slipped inside, quiet as breath, heading straight for the sink. Couldn't sleep either. Robert's voice startled him. Chris spun, fear flashing across his face. Please don't tell Mom. I just wanted to help. She's been so tired." His voice cracked, his bravado breaking with it. Robert took a step closer, gentler now. "You shouldn't have to be here, son." Chris shook his head, eyes glistening. "Someone has to," he whispered, then turned and fled into the night. Robert stood alone in the silence, the boy's words echoing through him. For the first time in years, something inside him stirred, an ache he hadn't felt since the night his own world fell apart. The next day, Robert's concern turned into quiet investigation. He started small, casual questions around town, polite conversations that revealed more than they should have. At the local pharmacy, a clerk recognized Amelia's name immediately. "She's been here a few times," the woman said softly, "always asking if there's a cheaper version of her medication. Poor thing. Said she was recovering from surgery." Surgery. The word lingered. Back at his office, Robert asked his assistant to check discreetly. The report came within hours. 6 months earlier, Amelia John had undergone emergency gallbladder surgery. Insurance had covered almost nothing. Since then, she'd been juggling 3 jobs, his mansion included, to pay the debt. That evening, when Amelia arrived, Robert met her at the door. "You should have told me," he said gently. Her face went pale. "Told you what?" "About the surgery. About the extra work." She hesitated, then forced a small smile. "It's over now. I'm fine, really." But he saw the truth. Her trembling hands, the faint scars at her wrist, the way she leaned on the counter as though standing too long hurt. For a moment, Robert didn't see an employee. He saw a woman fighting to stay afloat, too proud to ask for help. As she turned away, humming to mask her discomfort, something in Robert shifted. Admiration and guilt knotted together in his chest. That night, he lay awake again, haunted by a mother's quiet suffering and a boy's weary hands. It was Robert's driver who mentioned it first. "Sir," he said one evening, hesitant, "I'm fairly sure I saw young Chris John down on Main Street, working at the auto shop. Looked exhausted." Robert said nothing at first, but the thought wouldn't let go. Later that night, he drove there himself, parking a short distance away. Through the garage's half-open door, he saw the boy, small beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, scrubbing oil from the floor long after closing. His shirt was stained black, his hands raw. When Chris finally stepped outside, Robert approached quietly. The boy jumped, startled. "Hard night's work," Robert said gently. Chris froze, trying to hide his hands behind his back. "Please don't tell Mom," he blurted. "She doesn't know I'm still here." Robert's voice softened. "Why are you doing this, son? You should be in school." The words came out in fragments, heavy with shame. "Mom's still paying off the hospital bills. She won't let anyone help. I couldn't watch her break herself trying." He swallowed hard. "Sometimes she's too sick to clean your house, so I go instead. She doesn't know that either." Robert stood there, speechless. In the dim streetlight, he saw everything. The fatigue, the quiet pride, the selfless love of a boy trying to hold his world together. Chris looked away. "Please, sir," he whispered, "don't tell her. She'd rather starve than think I'm helping." Robert's heart broke a little in that moment. Robert had never been one for sentiment. Numbers, logic, results, those were his languages. But that night, something pulled at him as he sat in his study, the glow of his monitor illuminating the quiet room. He had decided to pay off Amelia's hospital debt anonymously. It felt simple, efficient, until the hospital clerk sent over the billing records for verification. As Robert skimmed the file, a single name in the corner caught his eye. Attending physician, Dr. Jonathan John. His chest tightened. The name tugged at a half-buried memory. Rain on a windshield, a boy crying in the back seat, his mother's pale face under hospital lights. A country doctor with kind eyes and steady hands had saved her that night, refusing any payment. "I'm just doing my duty," the man had said. "You don't owe me anything. Just be kind to someone when it counts." Robert sat back in his chair, stunned. Jonathan John, Amelia's father. The dots connected with quiet inevitability, as if time itself had been waiting for him to notice. This wasn't coincidence, it was a circle closing. The cleaning lady who never complained, the boy with the cracked hands, the debt that weighed them down. It all traced back to a kindness Robert's family could never repay. Until now, for the first time in years, Robert felt something stir in him that wasn't guilt or loneliness. It was gratitude, sharp, humbling, and long overdue. He found Chris again at the auto shop, swaying on his feet as the manager's voice cut through the clatter of tools. "You break another wrench, you pay for it," the man barked. Chris mumbled an apology, his skin pale and slick with sweat. Before Robert could call out, the boy's knees buckled. "Chris!" Robert was at his side in an instant. The manager scoffed until Robert pulled out his wallet, pressing a wad of bills into his hand. "Double his wages. He's done for the night." Without waiting for a reply, he lifted the unconscious boy into his arms and carried him out into the rain. Back at the mansion, a doctor came and went, leaving orders for rest and food. But Robert couldn't rest. He drove straight to Amelia's apartment, an aging building that smelled faintly of detergent and sorrow. Inside, he found stacks of bills, a half-empty bottle of medicine, and a single pair of worn shoes by the door. Amelia froze when she saw him. Tears welled. "I didn't want your pity," she whispered. Robert stepped closer, his voice trembling. "This isn't pity, Amelia. This is gratitude." And in that small, cluttered room, something finally broke open. Years of silence, pride, and distance, making space for grace to enter. Morning came softly, the kind that promised a new start. Amelia woke to find her debts gone. Every bill cleared, every letter marked paid in full. Robert had done it quietly, leaving only a note on her kitchen table. "Rest now. Let me take care of the rest." Chris, still pale but recovering, protested when Robert suggested he quit the auto shop. "We can't," he began, but Robert interrupted with a rare smile. "You can. It's time you went back to being 16. Within a week, a tutor arrived at their apartment, and Chris was back in school, chasing equations instead of overtime. Months passed. Winter melted into spring, and with it came the regional science fair. Chris stood behind a gleaming model of a renewable energy system, its tiny turbines spinning under fluorescent lights, a vision born from oil stains and sleepless nights. Robert sat quietly in the audience, hands clasped, heart steady. When Chris's name was called for first place, the boy looked out, found Robert's eyes, and smiled. In his speech, Chris's voice wavered. "This project is dedicated to a man who reminded me that kindness is never wasted." Applause rose like a tide, but Robert barely heard it. Pride, warm, unfamiliar, and deeply human, filled the space where loneliness once lived. For the first time, he didn't feel like a benefactor or a businessman. He felt something better. He felt like family. A year later, sunlight spilled through the glass atrium of the new Dr. Jonathan John Foundation. Banners fluttered, cameras clicked, and laughter filled the air. What had once been an idea scribbled in Robert's notebook was now alive, a promise kept. Amelia stood at the podium, poised and radiant, her voice steady as she welcomed the first group of scholarship students. Gone was the weary housekeeper. In her place stood a woman of purpose, directing a legacy born from quiet endurance. Robert watched from the front row, pride softening the sharp lines of his face. When it was Chris's turn, he unveiled a refined version of his renewable energy prototype, explaining how small innovations could change lives in big ways. The crowd applauded, But Chris's gaze sought only one person. When he found Robert, he smiled, a look that said thank you without a word spoken. Robert felt the sting of tears, not of sorrow, but of recognition. He heard again the long-ago words of the country doctor who'd once refused payment. You don't owe me anything. Just be kind to someone when it counts. Now he understood. Kindness didn't vanish. It traveled, patient and persistent, until it found its way home. That night, the mansion no longer felt empty. The air was warm, alive with remembered laughter. And as Robert lay down to sleep, peace settled over him like a benediction. For the first time in decades, he truly rested. Thank you for always staying with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment your thoughts. Next one will be more captivating than this one. Thank you.